Welcome, travelers and adventurers, to the Eye of Plenty, where stories are told, info is shared, and goods are traded. We are thrilled to have you join us on this fine day. Pull up a chair, let us treat you a drink, and settle in as we entertain you with our stories.
Your humble hosts for tonight are none other than Owen and Liz, guiding you through another chapter. So, get comfy and enjoy the warmth
Thank
of the
you for
fire,
those who
brought to you
are
by
coming
voices
along with our
in the
journey of
tavern.
our lovely podcast. Thank you for the viewers and the subscribers on YouTube, especially on Spotify as well. We're definitely doing our best to keeping things short and simple, but we love to talk about D&D as a whole and tabletop RPGs.
As for today's topic, we're talking about a most recent new game that came out from Critical Role and Darrington Press, Daggerheart.
And just to say, it's not sponsored or anything. We are just going to be talking about our appreciation for Daggerheart's progress and Critical Role as a whole, as this has been an open beta for quite some time. And we were able, to play open beta stuff. And what Critical Role really did is listen to the community to see if there's anything that needed to be changed. And they did an excellent job.
And so for now, the two of us will be briefly explaining the rules, the mechanics, and some character creation.
Yes. And towards the end of this episode, for our lovely friend over here, Owen, we will be creating one of his D&D characters, but into the Daggerheart system, which is gonna be very fun. We have spoken about his lovely character in one of the previous episodes. It is his turtle wizard, if I'm not mistaken.
It's pronounced Tortle, and you know it.
I know. I'm just saying turtle. I just want to. With that, let's get started. So, Daggerheart, it is actually recently released. I think like a couple of days ago it was released, and I managed to get my hands onto the core book and the cards, and I was able to look at the precious cards, all the domains and stuff, and I have to say all of the domains, all the classes and stuff, I know there are some minor changes that I have noticed from the open beta. They definitely did an excellent job. And like what Owen said, we're just going to introduce, and then we're going to talk about the classes that you can play, the in D&D terms, the races and the backgrounds you can have, and then we'll go off from there. So, Daggerheart, from my perspective of how they described it, is a very narrative-based system. It's while in D&D, there's all of these other mechanics that makes it somewhat mechanical than narrative, but with Daggerheart, it basically puts the story in everybody's hands instead of the GM. Even though that is D&D as well, but this is more driven into storytelling than playing. That's how I have it, per se.
So new to this day as well, so I wouldn't know too much on it on my end.
Yeah. I will say there was a video that I watched, and this guy explained it so well. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's very collaborative. That I think that's the best word to describe it. It's very it's a lot of collaborating, especially in D&D. Is usually you can skip session 0 and just basically make your character, backstory and stuff. While in Daggerheart, you can't skip session 0. Session 0 is for everyone in that case, I'll say. It's making the world, it's talking who has connection with one another, and it's I can't the word keeps escaping me, but just to kind of read from what the book says. Daggerheart is a heroic narrative-focused experience that features combat as a prominent aspect of play. The system facilitates emotionally engaging player-driven stories punctuated by exciting battles and harrowing challenges. The game takes a fiction-first approach, encouraging players and GMs to act in good faith with one another and focus on the story they're telling rather than the complexity of the mechanics, which makes the most sense. For those who know Critical Role and know some of their stories that they have told with Daggerheart, you can definitely tell that they are more more telling the story than worrying about the mechanics of it. And everything is also explained, I will say. Also, Daggerheart doesn't use a d20. It uses two d12s. One is considered hope and one is considered fear. I just smacked into my
And
microphone.
and and an interesting thing that while there is no natural 20 on those dice, but if you happen to roll two of the same number on those dice, that's considered a crit.
Yep, which is amazing because there's a lot of, instead of a 1 in like 20 chance to get a critical. Oh no, it's probably because it's 1 in, no, it's kind of half. It's not 50-50, but it's almost half because any number you roll, even if you roll Snake Eyes, which is 2 ones, that's still considered a critical success. There is really no critical failure.
There isn't?
No. I have from the book I read, there is really no critical failure unless if you fail with fear. I would say like if you got, because the minimum you can get is a 3 with fear, I'll say. Because if you get double ones, that's still critical success.
So I've done the math. The chances of rolling the same number the same number on the two 12-sided dice is a 1 out
of 24.
1 out of 12 chance.
1 out of 12 chance. Because if you're rolling 2d12s, that's if you're multiplying it by 2, it's 24. So that if you think about it, it's 12 out of 24 chance to roll double numbers. So it's almost 50%, but at the same time, I have rolled some d12s before, and let's just say I have not been getting a lot of the same numbers. But maybe in Daggerheart, maybe one day I'll get a better chance of rolling them, because I think of it, I'm not saying it's like Yahtzee, because you know how with Yahtzee you have to get like 5 of the same number. I think of it something like that, as you have to get the same number of like that's one of the things you can get. You could get 5 of a kind of something. I'm getting a little off topic about another game. Anyways, so that is basically Daggerheart. Daggerheart is worrying about the storytelling over mechanics. Even though there is not that much mechanics into it, but it's more it's woven into storytelling, I'll say. It comes out naturally. Yeah. That's how I would, yeah. That's how I can put it. And another thing is that with Daggerheart, it comes with cards. So a lot of your abilities and stuff are on a card. So if you read the card, you know what you're doing. It's like D&D where you have to read your features in order to know what's going, but at least you have like a physical card to look at, be like, oh, I can do this, and you can tell the DM, and you can show the DM and be like, aha, I have this, screw you. Speaking,
which is
yes,
which would be a huge help for those who are more visually, like who would be more visually useful in games.
yes.
What I'm trying to say is that the cards are more helpful for those who play visually than mentally.
And with I will say definitely it's very useful, as well as I will also briefly say about combat as well. We will explain more of it later. Combat is not like where in D&D there's an initiative, you have to roll initiative. This you could go at any time you want. It's more narrative of who's gonna jump in and, you know, take the first hit, or who's going to be defending and what would go wrong. Because once you fail the roll, the GM can now decide how to screw you up. Basically, with what they have with their monsters and creatures. Now to go to the next topic, which is preparing for the adventure. I'm just reading the context, the table of context from my book. So with the preparing for the adventure, there is character creation, there is There is actually a world overview, apparently, that I have not read, unfortunately. But it seems that there is a. It talks about the world, and some of the core realms is the mortal realm, which is the material plane in D&D. They have the Hallows above, which once belonged to the Forgotten Gods before the new gods claimed it at the end of the earliest age. So this is like heaven, per se. I will put it that way.
Heaven and hell.
Yes, as well as the circle below, which is the lower realms, where many of the forgotten gods who fought most passionately during the uprising were banished. So the fallen gods, and yeah, so there is, and also the realms beyond, which is the elemental lands, the astral realm. So some of these world overview in Daggerheart is a little bit similar in what we know in D&D and the Forgotten Realms, where there is a material plane, and then there is the astral plane. There's, you know, the gods above, the gods below, and the gods in between, and then you go off from that. And I believe that was it. Yep, that was it. I am definitely going to read a little bit more about the world itself because it's very interesting. And now, character creation is very, very fun. There's only 9 classes, and I believe there is a little bit more of the ancestries, is what they call themselves now, instead of races, and backgrounds, which is actually a big part of your characters. It is basically your community. And we will get into that in just a brief moment. With that being said, let's talk about the classes that they have. They have a bard, a druid, a guardian, a ranger, rogue, seraph, sorcerer, warrior, and wizard. Those are the 9 classes in this game. So another thing with Daggerheart is it's mostly used for a smaller group of people, but just a side note, Critical Role did it with 7. You could do 7, but you can't go maximum of 9 because there is only 9 classes. So if everyone's playing one class, then yeah, then sure, do 9 people. I'm not gonna stop you. We're not gonna stop you. But for me, I definitely recommend at least 4 to 5 people as you start Daggerheart, and then work your way up for a somewhat of a bigger group.
And that stopped Critical Role from doing 9 people.
Hey, it didn't. Actually, no, they had 10 people at their table. Remember that?
At one point, yes, but that's Dungeons and Dragons. This is Daggerheart.
That's also very true. Another thing with these classes is they have subclasses, but instead of having bajillion subclasses like in D&D, they only have 2. So this system's very simple. There's not a lot to think about, and you get to choose one or the other. So for a bard, you have troubadour, if that's the name correctly. I don't know if I'm saying that right, or the wordsmith.
It's troubadour.
Oh wow, so I did say that right. Impressive. So if you either want to be playing music to boast your allies, or you want to use clever wordplay and captivative crowds, then you have druids, which is the warden of the elements or the warden of renewal. And this is when, if you want to embody the natural elements of the wild, or if you want to use powerful magic to heal your party. Then you have guardian, which is stalwart or vengeance. So for stalwart, if you want to play, if you want to take heavy blows and keep fighting, or if you want to strike your enemies down who harm you or your allies. Then you have the ranger. I will say, before I say anything about ranger, I will say in Daggerheart, rangers are definitely getting some spotlight on them, and it's very good. Because you can either play Beastbound or Wayfinder. So basically, if you want a companion, you could be Beastbound if you want to form a deep bond with an animal ally, or play Wayfinder if you want to hunt your prey and strike with deadly force. So basically, if you want to be, what's the subclass in D&D with the companion? I think that's kind of any of them. I think any ranger.
I think it's pretty much similar to Daggerheart. I think any ranger is allowed.
Yeah, I will say the subclass, the ranger subclass for what is it? I'm trying to remember the subclass for it because it's just a simple one.
Yes, it's the Beastmaster archetype.
Yeah, the Beastmaster is definitely the Beastbound, and then the Wayfinder, I believe, if I look this up real quickly, because I'm totally remember. Um,
So- Sounds like the Hunter archetype.
yes, it's the Hunter Conclave one. I think that's the one that I was thinking about. Let me just read real quick. Yep, I'm gonna assume so. It was that one.
I'm gonna say it's the Hunter archetype that's comparative to the Wayfinder.
Yeah. If you had to like compare it, I think it's a little bit similar to that for sure. Where was it? The Horizon Walker? I don't remember. No,
Well, given that,
Horizon Walker is something different. Never mind. But yeah, I will say with the Ranger class, especially from how I read it, it's basically, do you want an animal companion to help you out, or do you want to be the person who wants to hunt your prey and strike with deadly force? That's basically what it says in the book. But when I read each of them, for Wayfinder, it's really in its name. You could be the tracker, which is what rangers are in D&D, but it focuses on you are a tracker, you know what to do, you know how to hunt your prey, etc., etc. Now, the other 5 classes, you got Rogue, which is Nightwalker or Syndicate. So if you want to play Nightwalker, if you want to manipulate shadows to maneuver through the environment, being a ninja, or play the Syndicate if you want to have a web of connections everywhere you go. So Nightwalker, I have to combine it with the rogue subclass of assassin, or there was that other one, or thief, like a combination of those two. And for Syndicate, it has to be that one rogue subclass. Oh my god, it's escaping me. I know it has to start with an I.
Inquisitive.
Yes, that one. If you want to play something like that. I'm gonna keep this open because I'm so gonna remember anything. Then you have Seraph. So, Seraph are, how I understand it, they are a mix of a cleric and a paladin. There is that big mixture in between, but you can play the Winged Sentinel if you want to take flight and strike crushing blows from the sky, or play the Divine Wielder if you want to dominate the battlefield with a legendary weapon. So either you want to fly, cast magic spells, and strike your enemies down, or you want to be a beefy paladin. Basically, that's what that one is. Um, then there's Sorcerer, which is you could do Elemental Origin or the Primal Origin. If you want to channel for Elemental Origin, you can channel the raw power of a particular element, so Avatar stuff, or the Primal Origin if you want to extend the versatility of your spells in a powerful way. So basically, the Primal Origin is kind of taking meta magic from the sorcerer class and making it in its own subclass. That's how I understand it. While for the elemental origin, think of it of taking, honestly, I would say, like I said before, it's like the Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you want to be a specific element, but I believe the only elements, if I can pull up the card myself, it is, where is it?
Air, earth, fire, lightning, and water.
Yes, thank you. It's, yeah. What's funny is that I love that they put lightning as its own element. I'm like, you know what? Sure, because then people are gonna say, what about, you know, what is it? Because usually the 4 elements is air, earth, fire, water. 4 nations long ago. Anyway, um, I had coffee earlier, so I'm a little hyper today. Um, but I do like that they add a 5th element to that, which is lightning, which is very, very cool. I know I would choose that. The last 2 is Warrior and Wizard. So for the Warrior class, you could do Call of the Brave or Call of the Slayer. Call of the Brave if you want to use the might of your enemies to fuel your own power, and the Call of the Slayer if you want to strike down adversaries with immense force. Adversaries are basically enemies for Daggerheart. Just to clarify what that word means. And then there's the School of Knowledge or the School of War, which is play the School of Knowledge if you want a keen understanding of the world surrounding you, or play the School of War if you want to utilize trained magic for violence. So there is also the School of
To
War.
clarify there,
Mm-hmm.
to clarify that, you didn't mention that this is the wizard class.
Yes, this is the Wizard class. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Yes. And for I just do wanted to say for the warrior class, um I had to look between, because some people sometimes gets confused between guardian and warrior. Guardian is basically if you want to be the beefier person, and I would say it has some aspects of being the barbarian of the group, while the warrior is more of the fighter.
But the call of the brave subclass kind of sounds like the barbarian, because the description clearly says use the might of your enemies to fuel your own power.
That is true.
But,
Or it could be the battlemaster subclass, because you could do a lot
maybe.
of battle maneuvers to screw up your enemies. But yeah, that can definitely be something. I just want to see. Let me see the guardian subclass and what the foundation can do. Okay, yeah. So there's that, and then vengeance is. Yeah. So depending on what you want to play, you definitely want to like look at those classes and read into it more. Um, but the guardian warrior depending on how you want to play it, it can be somewhat of a fighter class or somewhat of a barbarian class, because soon we'll be talking about domains and stuff. Some of the domains do actually have an ability where you can essentially rage, but they're higher leveled, unfortunately, which is fine. But those are the 9 classes you can play. And once again, those are Bard, Druid, Guardian, Ranger, Rogue, Sorcerer, Warrior, and Wizard. Now, with that being said, we're going to talk about your heritage. Heritage is a mix between your ancestry and your community. So, when you make a character, you obviously have to figure out what they would be. And your ancestries you could choose from is a Clank, which is a Warforged, a Dracona, which is basically a Dragonborn, a Dwarf, Elf, Fairy, if you want to be basically a tiny fake creature, a Fawn, Furbug, Fun Girl. I call it Fun Girl because that's how I keep hearing it, but it's basically if you want to be a mushroom person, a Glappa, which is turtle, giant, goblin, halfling, human, Infernus, which are tieflings, Kachari, which is catfolk, orc, ribbit, frog people, and Simba, which is monkeys. Which is very fun. And then there's communities. There is 9 communities. There's Highborn, Loreborn, Orderborn, Richborn, Seaborn, Slyborn, Underborn, Wanderborn, and Wildborn. And with those, I will say that
they're basically where your character would come from.
yes. And with each of your ancestry and your community, there is always going to be an ability or a feature that you can do within that ancestry or community. And then when you write down your heritage, it will be your community and then your ancestry. So let's say you want to be a highborn Clank. That is how you would write it on your character sheet. Another thing is there is no such thing as languages. Well, there's no list of languages. If you believe that your character would know a certain language, they know that language. And another thing that they say, I'm just going to read this paragraph because it's very interesting and it makes me very happy. In Daggerheart, you're not asked to pick a specific languages for your characters. This game assumes that everyone speaks a common language. It's up to you whether that's through mundane or magical means, and that sign language is widely understood across cultures and communities. If you'd like to have specific regional languages in your campaign, discuss options with your table. So that's the other thing with Daggerheart. When you go through character creation in D&D, you need to know the language, you need to know the weapons that they're proficient in. There's a lot of things that you need to know what you're proficient in. In this, they say do whatever you want. If it makes sense for your character, it makes sense for your character. And then there is 6 abilities or character traits. There's agility, strength, finesse, instinct, presence, and knowledge. And I had to read through them because some of them are like the same thing, but obviously strength is strength. Then you have agility and finesse. Then you also have instinct, presence, and knowledge. So agility is sprint, leap, and maneuver. Finesse, strength. Sorry, let me go down the list again. Agility is strength, leap, maneuver. Strength is lift, smash, grapple. Finesse is control, hide, tinker. Instinct, perceive, sense, navigate. Presence, charm, perform, deceive. And knowledge, recall, analyze, and comprehend. There is no such thing as constitution in this. Which is very interesting. They basically took apart the I like that they took apart dexterity and put it into 2 subcategories with the agility and finesse, because someone can be really good with maneuvering and stuff, and someone can be really good with finesse, which is controlling, hiding, and tinkering. So with the agility, you know how to like scurry up a rope, sprint to cover, or bound from rooftop to rooftop, while finesse is more skilled at the tasks that require accuracy, if you want to put it that way. And stealth and utmost control, which is very cool. And then obviously instinct is like your wisdom, presence is like your charisma, and knowledge is intelligence. And then again, strength is strength. And in this game, you know what? Hey Owen, usually what do we do when we have to roll for our not hit points, with our ability scores? What are some ways that we do that?
Either you roll for your ability score or you use a point system.
And I think standard array is like that third one.
Or that one, yeah.
Yeah. No. In this one, you start off with a +2, 2 +1s, 2 zeros, and a -1. That's what you start. So everyone's always going to start with a negative stat, which is very fun.
Oh, joy.
But with leveling up, though, you can get rid of that negative if you want. So that's even more funner. But yeah, so in this one, the modifiers, you can put something with a +2. You could put 2 character traits with a +1, 2 with 2 zeros, and 1 -1. There has to be that one stat that you're not really that good at. I will say, in this game as well, when you do, what is it? Yes, when you do, oh my god, it's escaping me. What was I gonna say? Uh-oh. I think I lost my thought. Oh, yes, when you do character creation, Jesus. Instead of having one character sheet for everything, every class has their own character sheet. There is a character sheet where you could put your own things on there, but every class has their own, and they always have a second sheet to help you with character creation. So let's say you're playing a bard, they give you suggested traits and items and anything that they use, technically. So for the traits, you can use what they have, or you can put it wherever you want, which is very fun. Now, there is also additional information on the character sheet where there is evasion, hit point and stress, and hope and fear. So with the evasion is basically your AC. That is for the GM to roll to hit you. The thing is, while you are all rolling 2d12s, the GM is still going back to the old ways and rolling a d20 to try to hit you, which is scary. With that, the evasion reflects how hard it is for the adversaries to hit you. And every class has a starting evasion, and then whatever abilities you choose or whatever you want to change, the evasion will go higher. Then there's also there is also hit point and stress. So with your character health and well-being represented by hit point and stress, Hit points, sometimes called as HP, like we all know, are a abstract reflection of your physical fortitude and ability to take hits from both blade and magic. Oh, little side note. There's no such thing as different types of damage in this game. It's either physical or magical. That's it. Which is very fun because
And
then you don't have to worry about many different types of damage types. While in D&D, there's bludgeoning, there's piercing, there's slashing, and then there's all the elemental ones, which is acid, poison, lightning, yada yada.
but there are damage thresholds.
Yes, which we will get to in a moment. I think it says it here. Yes. Um, and that's the other. Actually, I will cover that now. Oh wait, no, it's down later. Never mind. Um, because they changed something with the damage threshold. Instead of having 3 different types of threshold numbers, they only have 2, and you have to choose what armor will give you that threshold, which I'll explain in a moment. Which is actually, I like it a little bit better than how they had it before. So with stress, stress reflects your ability to withstand the pressure of dangerous situations and mental strain. Every class will start with 6 stress and as well as hit points. Everyone always starts with 6 hit points and 6 stress. And some of your abilities in your class may say spend a stress to do this, or spend also hope as well, which is also a fun resource. Now, hope and fear. They are currencies used by the players and the GM, which is by players, you guys are collecting hope. By the GM, they're collecting fear. It is to represent the way faith turns for or against the characters during a game. You will start with 2 hope and mark these on the hope field of your character sheet. So, with hope, it is a very fluid and flexible resource in this game. There's many ways to gain hope and there's many ways to use the hope. The maximum amount of hope you can have is 6. And in the game, you roll your duality dice. With the duality dice, you have to declare what is going to be considered your hope die and what is going to be considered your fear die. Please don't use the same color, because then you're never gonna know unless you're rolling for damage. But there's some people may choose something very light or very colorful as their hope, and some may choose dark colors as their fear. If you do the other way around, you're gonna confuse me as the GM if I am GMing your game. I will put that out there. If you do that out of spite, I have respect, but why? But with when you are rolling your duality dice, there is certain ways that you can determine the result. So if you can roll with hope or roll with fear. That is what you have to declare after you roll the dice. So let's say Owen here decides to roll his duality dice. He got let's say a 10 on the hope and a 5 on the fear. He rolled a 15 with hope, and he gains a hope back. But if he rolled 15 with fear, where the 10 is on the fear die, then that is 15 with fear. As well as there is different consequences or I guess boons? No. What's the other word you use for when you do something good? Something good will happen. That's how I would describe it. Unless, and you got some... Yeah, I was gonna say, and you got another word.
Benefits.
Hey, there it is. Jeez. I cannot think today. But yes. So, when you roll with hope, you get your benefits. But when you roll with fear, that's where the DM consequences can happen right then and there, or they'll take the fear token and use it later. And that is always the scary part. If you know that your GM took the fear token, you're screwed later, and they will use it against you. And that's the fun thing with Daggerheart, because instead of like in D&D where the consequence happens when you roll, it will come for you later instead. And then, of course, there is now the equipment that you choose, which is the weapons and the armor and other starting items. But I want to focus more on the armor because of the damage thresholds. So for your armor, you choose the severity on incoming attacks. At character creation, you can choose one set of armor and equip it. You can find the armor suggestions on the top of your character guide. But if you'd like to choose your own, you can find it at tier 1 armor in the armor tables. So, another thing with Daggerheart, before I continue, there are 4 tiers. Tier 1 is level 1, and also Daggerheart stops at level 10. Because basically they pushed it smaller, but you get increasingly more powerful with each tier. Like tier 2, you are basically like, I would say like level 8 to 10 at that point. So it's a big boost. Maybe a little bit lower, but there's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. So tier 2 is levels 2 to 4. Then tier 3 is 5 to 7. Wait. That I don't remember. But I know that tier 4 is 10. Something, I think it's 8 to 10. Let me look at a character sheet. Ah, there it is. 2 to 4, 5 to 7 is tier 3, and then 8 to 10 is tier 4. I was right. And with each tier, you can upgrade a lot. And that is when you would work with your DM and ask, like, with your upgrades and stuff. With selecting armor, there's damage threshold. In D&D, it's a pain in the butt to do math, especially with hit points. So since there's no number for hit points, you look at your damage threshold, and that is how many slots you have to mark off. So let's say your damage threshold is a 6 and a 13. With that, if you are taking let's say 3 damage, that is your minor threshold. You only mark 1 hit point. Then let's say you go above 6, so let's say you take 8 damage, you mark 2 hit points, which is your major threshold, damage threshold, and then there's severe, which you mark 3, which will be 13. Also, another thing with armor is that you also add your level to it. So let's say the armor has a 6, 13 threshold to it. You add 1 to each of it, so it would be 7, 14, which is actually very good. As you level up, your thresholds will go up. I think that's the base way to describe thresholds. Then there's your armor score. That is the amount of armor slots that you will have to reduce the incoming damage. And also the armor score is the amount you can reduce. So let's say you take 16 damage, which is past your severe threshold, and let's say you want to use some armor slots to reduce it to major. You would probably have to use 1 or 2 to bring it down to major, because with damage, if you meet the threshold, that's still considered whatever threshold higher. So let's say you have your armor threshold 7 to 14. If you take 7 damage, that's still considered major, and if you take 14, that's considered severe threshold, damage threshold. And also with the armor score, you minus it by the number. So if you have an armor score of 3, you reduce 3 damage every time you take a armor slot. And of course there's backgrounds and stuff. Now, oh, and this is my favorite part, experiences. So, what are experiences, you say? Experiences are... That's a good question, actually. But experiences are basically a specific thing that your character is really good at. And from what the book says, in Daggerheart, your character experience are one of the core ways you can express their backstory and expertise through mechanics. An experience is a word or phrase used to encapsulate a specific set of skills your character has required over the course of their exciting life. So, for example, hey Owen, you're a lovely wizard. What would an experience be for them if you had to make one up? and we can use this later when we make your character.
Experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure, but I think for the backstory, I believe that he and his siblings had to survive at a certain point of their age and no longer have their parents looking out for them.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. So some of the experience examples, just to give you some ideas. So there's, you can base it off your backgrounds, characteristics, specialties, skills, or phrases. So some of the backgrounds can be bodyguard, bounty hunter, chief to the royal family. Characteristics is battle hardened or bookworm, leader, lone wolf, loyal, observant. Specialties: gambler, healer, inventor, magical historian, map maker, master's disguise. There's also skills, which could be animal whisperer, barter, deadly aim, fast learner, incredible strength, liar, light feet, etc., etc. And also, the fun part of this is you can make phrases on your own, which is also very fun and also very funny if you come up with something. So some of these phrases is catch me if you can, fake it until you make it. First time the charm, hold the line, I won't let you down. I'll catch you, I got your back, knowledge is power, nature's friend, never again, no one left behind, pick up pick on someone your own size, the show must go on. This is not an negotiation. I hate that word. I can't say it. And wolf in sheep's clothing. And another thing is when you come up with these experiences, you would generally explain to the GM what you are thinking, what this experience can be. So for example, catch me if you can. You can use that experience for your roles when you're trying to get out of a situation. That's the other thing with the experiences. You spend a hope to add to your roll, and usually you start with a +2, so you can add a +2 to your roll, plus whatever else you have. So with your lovely turtle wizard, and I'm gonna keep saying it, you can think of some experiences that he might have went through and a certain set of skills that he's very good at. Especially now since there is no proficiencies with like thieves tools. So let's say somebody wants to play a rogue and they want to be really good at picking locks, they can make that into an experience. And they can add that to the role where a situation needs it. So that is very fun with the experiences. Now, one of my favorite parts, domains. With the lovely domains, there are, if I remember correctly, there are 9 domains. And these domains are called, if I remember correctly, Arcana, Blade, Bone, Codex, Grace, Midnight, Sage, Splendor, and Valor. And every class shares 2 of them. And in the book, it has a very beautiful chart called the domain circle. So any of you who wants to see what that looks like, there's many different examples. Just search up Daggerheart domain circle, and there is some beautiful circles that they made. And every class will always share a domain. So during session 0, there's always going to be a class. Surprisingly, unless it's not connected to that class, but there is always going to be 2 classes that share, as well as so for example, for the wizard class, they share Arcana and Codex, and I believe Bard also, no, not Bard.
Wizard has the Codex of Splendor. The Bard has the Codex domain.
Yes, the Bard has the Codex domain too. So, just to give the whole example again, for a Bard is Codex and Grace. For Rogue, it's Grace and Midnight. For Sorcerer, it's Midnight and Arcana. For Druid, it's Arcana and Sage. For Ranger, it's Sage and Bone. For Warrior, for Bone and Blade. For Guardian, it's Blade and Valor. And for Seraph, it's Valor and Seraph. And obviously for Wizard, it is also Splendor and Codex. So the Wizard can also do some healies if they wanted to. And I like that they share domains instead of like everyone has their own thing, own spells and stuff. While in D&D, everyone has their own set of spells that is for that specific class. And yeah, and once you like see the chart, you can kind of explain why some of it would make sense, especially for ranger when it said that it shares sage and bone. It makes the most sense because bone is a lot more of like combat stuff, while for sage is more like the nature magic of it, or like the nature abilities you can do. And then one of the fun things for the lovely um, things you do towards the end of session 0 is you create your connections. So on the second part of your character sheet, for all character sheets, there always going to be a set of questions for you, and also a set of questions to ask, always 3 of them, to ask somebody else within the group of how you know each other. You can use those questions, or the fun part is you could change it up and be like, you know what, I don't like this question, and you could change it up yourself. And also, you don't have to use them, but it also helps you create your character. So, for example, on a sorcerer character sheet, some background question to ask is, what did you do that made the people in your community wary of you? Or, you have a deep fear you hide from everyone. What is it, and why does it scare you? That is the other thing. Um, you can always change these questions. You don't have to tell the GM right away. You can change it and work on that yourself. The fun part is the connection questions. So, for example, you could be, let's say Owen asks me a question about my character and say, why do you trust me so deeply? It helps you think deeply of, how do I know this person and why do I know this person, if you want to create that connection. Because usually in Daggerheart, they kind of want to skip, you all meet in the tavern type scenario. Um, Usually it's always good to have at least 1 or 2 connections with the other players, because it helps with the narrative, especially you guys know each other, you guys know somewhat of each other's backstories, especially surprising them with more of your backstory. Another question is, why do we keep our shared past a secret? Or what did I do to make you cautious around me? Which is also very fun. And I just realized I turned the page and it explains every domain, what it is.
Hmm.
Which I will do briefly. I'm basically going to say just the first 2 sentences. So for your Arcana is the domain of innate and instinctual magic. Those who control this path tap into raw forces of the realms and to manipulate both their own energy and the elements. Blade is the domain of weapon mastery. Whenever it's by steel, bow, or perhaps a more specialized arm, those who follow this path will have the skill to cut short the lives of others. Bone is the domain of tactics and the body. Practitioners of this domain has an uncanny control over their own physical abilities and the eye for predicting the behaviors of others in combat. So bone is basically the fighter class a little bit because of the battle maneuvers. Then there's Codex, which is intensive magical study. Those who seek magical knowledge turn to the equation of power recorded in books written on scrolls and etched into walls. And when you read some of the domain cards for the Codex, you can see instead of having 1 spell on card, there's like 3 or 4 spells on them. It's like one of the Codex cards for at least level 1 is the Book of Ava, and it has 3 spells. They have Power Push, Tava's Armor, and Ice Spike, which is amazing because then instead of having 1 spell for each level, you have 3. The rest of them, Grace is the domain of charisma, so it can be storytelling, charming spells, or shroud of lies. Then we have Midnight, which is shadows and secrecy, by clever tricks, death magic, or the click of the night. Then we have Sage, which is the domain of the natural world. For those who walk this path, is the power of the earth and the creatures to unleash raw magic. Then we have Splendor, which is the domain of life. This is through the magic followers that gain the ability to heal and to extend control over death. And then there's Valor, which is the domain of protection, whether through the attack or defense. Those who choose this disciplined channel has strength to protect their allies in battle. So a lot of it, especially for the what's it called, for the guardian and warrior class, makes me laugh because it every time when I think of the at least the for the guardians class, I always I'm like, oh, it's Blade and Valor. Why am I thinking Glory and Valor for the Guardian class? That's how I think of it. While the Warrior is more like fighter and more, I'm going to see what they can do so I can use it for my advantage. So that's why I thought the Warrior was more of a fighter class, while Guardian is more like pride and I'm going to beat the shit out of somebody really, really hard. The tanks. But yeah, I think that's it for character creation. Now, my favorite part
A lot of it.
That's a lot of it. And if you guys want to learn more of it, actually, I will say Matthew Mercer is actually doing a little series called "Get Your Sheet Together," like character sheet, which is
a predecessor to Handbook or Helper.
Yes. Instead of it's basically handbook helper, which is I thought at first you said hamburger helper. I was like, wait, what? Excuse.
It sounds like hand booger, at least.
Oh, don't say that now.
They did say that in the first episode.
Okay. If they did say that for the first episode, all right.
Well, at least that's what Marisha says. Marisha says it sounds like hand booger, but Matto's like, yeah, I'm almost hearing that too.
Yeah, I think they probably have to take a couple of takes and be like, God damn it, I said it again. All right, take 2. Take 50. Yay, I said it. Now.
Anyway.
Yes. Anyways, now, time for the lovely core mechanics of this lovely, lovely, lovely game. Which I will open to the page because, yes. So, there is the flow of the game. In the session of Daggerheart, you and other players go around the table describing what the characters do in the fictional circumstances that the GM set up, building on each other's ideas and working together to tell an exciting story. But we're going to go into the core mechanics. So, with the core mechanics, like I said before, there is let me see, where is it? There it is. The duality dice, which is we all know. And with that being said, with the duality dice, there's a lot of different things that can happen, but just another thing with critical success, you can gain a hope and you can clear stress from your character sheet when you do critical success. Another thing, when you critical succeed on an attack roll, you deal extra damage as described in damage rolls. When with damage rolls, which is actually very, very fun. Let me see. It does say it here real quick. Critical success and damage.
The active player decides whether to utilize an experience or active other effects, then if applicable, adds the appropriate tokens and dice, such as advantage or rally dice, to their dice pool.
Oh, yes.
That's just extra dice and modifiers.
Another thing is critical success and damage. If your attack roll critically succeeds, your attack deals extra damage. Starting with the highest possible value on the damage die can roll, then making the damage roll as usual, and then adding it to the value. So you can do a hell of a lot of damage in this game. So for example, let's say you roll critical, and let's say you have a wand that deals a d6 of magical damage. But also, the character has a proficiency of 2, so that is 2d6 total. So that's total 12 damage right now. Then you roll the 2d6 and add that modifier. So let's say he rolls a 4 and a 5, that is 9, and then he adds that modifier. So that's a total of 22 damage. 22 damage in total. So even though that is also one of the homebrew ways in D&D that you can do, but at the same time, it's so you can do a hefty damage, especially you want to do a lot of damage because of thresholds, because especially that you have to look at the threshold of what's going on, but since there's no actual number to hit, It's just threshold. So at like level 1, you could take more of a hefty hit as someone from level 1 in D&D. Because, in level 1 of D&D, everyone has less than 10 health. If I'm not mistaken.
I don't know.
It's something like that. But, that's what happened to me. I had 8 health at level 1, and I died within a hit. So that was fun. Another thing is, when you're using hope, there's many different things you can do. There is helping an ally, so that is giving someone advantage, and since it's a duality die, there's no really advantage where you roll like 2d20s. You just add a d6 to the roll, and then for disadvantage, you subtract a d6 to the roll. I don't know why I say distract. Another thing is you can utilize the experience. Another thing which is very fun, a very fun feature in combat, is called a tag team roll. One of you have to spend 3 hope, and you cannot use it again for the session unless the other person do it, and you can do a lot of damage in a turn if you do that. So one person does 3 hope, and you say what you are going to be doing, and this is the part of combat where narrative is very awesome, because you guys can work together and figure out how do you do this tag team roll. How would you heavily wound or kill a creature? And you add your when you do, you roll your duality die and you take the higher number before the GM says it hits, and even if that's with hope or with fear. So you guys have to decide which one you want to take. Do you want to take the risk for the GM to take the fear, or take the hope so you're safe? And also, there is also some abilities that you may have that has a hope feature, where it takes you to spend a certain amount of hope to activate that feature. Another thing, which is very, very fun, is, let me just see. Oh, when you're taking damage, especially, this is something you would talk about with your group to make sure you know what, if everything's okay with it. You can also do an optional rule called massive damage. To make the game more dangerous, if your table can implement a massive threshold. If you ever take damage equal to double your severe threshold, you mark 4 hit points instead. And with that means if you guys agree on that, then I will be doing that for all of my adversaries. So let's say your major threshold is 16, you doubled that, that'll be 32, and let's say someone takes like 33 damage, you're marking 4 hit points, and you're already on not on the brink of death, but ouchies. Yeah. With that, there's stress, which I explained. There's action rolls that I kind of explain. Oh, another thing is, there's also a different type of roll called reaction rolls. It's still your duality dice, but hope and fear does not do anything with it. As if, let's say you roll 15 with fear, the GM does not take the fear, or if you roll 15 with hope, you don't take a hope. A reaction roll is basically if you can react as quickly as possible. I think that's really it. I don't know if there's, unless you remember anything from playing the game. I know there's the domain cards, I know there's the advantage and stuff. Oh, I forgot about the conditions. There's actually not a lot of conditions in this game too. Which is there's only 3. Hidden, restrained, and vulnerable. So hidden, when you're hidden, any rules that they have against you has a disadvantage, and that's really it. You're just hidden from sight, and I would say for me, you have advantage in the roll if you're coming out from hidden condition to attack somebody. Restrain is that you cannot move until this condition is cleared, but you can still take action from your current position. So you can still like throw something or do an ability that doesn't require you to move. And there's also a very fun condition, because there are certain domain cards that actually helps you with this, is vulnerable. When you gain the vulnerable condition, you're in a difficult position with the fiction. This might mean you are knocked over, scrambling to keep your balance, caught off guard, magical, enfeebled, or anything that makes sense in the scene. When a creature becomes invulnerable, the players and the GM should work together to describe narratively how that happened. While you're vulnerable, all rolls targeting you has advantage. What I remember with vulnerable is that you take double damage just right off the bat. So I'm glad that they changed that, because when they did double damage, and I was doing that to some of the players where they got a creature to be vulnerable, they took double damage and they were already almost dead within round, like, if they were rounds like round 2. I was like, whoa, this is a lot. And then there's also temporary conditions, which is what some of these are, where let's see, where you can at a certain point you can get rid of it. And there's also special conditions where certain requirements are met. And I think that's really it. Oh, there's also countdowns, Owen.
Countdowns.
Yes. And with the countdown, you can there's more information about it, but a countdown may tick every time when an action roll is made, every time a PC rolls with fear, during each downtime, or any other parameters. And there's more countdowns on a later page. Another thing is maps, range, and movement. In this lovely game of Daggerheart, there is no such thing as 5 feet of movement, 10 feet, etc., etc., etc. With the range, there's melee, very close, close, far, very far, and out of range. So melee, within 5 feet. I'm going to just use D&D terms to kind of help out. Then there's very close, which is 5 to 10 feet away, which is a length of a game card, 2 to 3 inches can be used to consider with this very close range. That's the other thing I love about Daggerheart. They use real life materials that you can use to measure how far something is. So you don't even need a map with lines anymore. You can just print out a map and let them move however they want to move. that's like the best part. You don't have to worry about figuring out how far something is, or you have to make the grid to make sure everything's 5 feet. No. This game, it says that's 10 feet away. Just use your card. That's the best part. Then there's close, which is using a standard pencil, which is 5 to 6 inches, or is 10 to 30 feet away. Then there's far, which is a long edge of a standard piece of paper, which is 11 to 12 inches, or it's 30 to 100 feet. I love that they say 30 to 100 feet is far, because it actually makes sense. It is pretty far. Then there's very far, which is anything beyond 100 feet to like 300 feet, and then obviously out of range, which is like past 300 feet. And if you want to use, like, if you do have maps with squares and such, you can keep in mind that melee is 1 square, very close is 3 squares, close is 6 squares, far is 12 squares, very far is 13 plus squares, and out of range off the battle map. That is an optional rule if you want to use. Also, with movement in D&D, usually it's like, oh, I can move 30, 35 feet. In this, if you are moving, it is, let me see. If you are moving farther from close range, you have to make an agility roll to see if you go further than that. And there are some domain cards that says, no, you don't need to roll. You can just go far range, which is very fun. So everyone could technically become a monk. Also, there's downtime, which is very, very fun. There's a short rest and long rest. With the thing is that you still have to use 2. So for a short rest, you can choose between tending to your wounds, clearing your stress, repairing your armor, or prepare. So tending to your wounds, you can and it's always describing. The DM will always be like, how do you tend to your wounds? How you clear your stress? how you prepare your armor, and how do you prepare. And with each of these, you will clear a number of hit points, 1d4 plus your tier. You could do this to an ally as well instead. Then there's clear your stress, is how you blow off your steam. And then clear number stress equal 1d4 plus your level. And then there's also repair your armor, 1d4 plus your level. And then preparing is that if you choose to prepare with one or more party of your if you choose to prepare, you gain a hope. But if you do it with one or more people in your party, each of you will gain 2 hope. Then there's long rest, which is basically you tend to all your wounds, clear all your stress, repair all your armor, prepare all your armor, or prepare. Same thing with preparing, 1 hope or 2 hope with people. And then the 5th thing you can do on the long rest is work on a project. With the short rest and long rest, you still have to choose 2 options. It's not, you don't benefit everything from a long rest. Another thing is, there is something we need to talk about. The death move. I think you remember this one, Owen, do you?
Really?
There's 3 different types of death moves, and after the death move, I would love to know which one you would choose after I'm done reading it. There's Blaze of Glory. Your character embraces death and goes out in a blaze of glory. Take 1 action at the GM's distraction, which critically succeeds, then cross through the veil of death. Avoid death. Your character avoids death and faces consequences. They temporarily drop unconscious, and then you work with the GM to describe how the situation worsens. Your character can't move or act while unconscious. They can't be targeted by an attack, and they return to consciousness when an ally clears 1 or more of their marked hit points, or when the party finishes a long rest. After your character falls unconscious, you roll your hope die. If the value is equal to or under your character level, then they gain a scar. Or, the fun one, risk it all. Roll your duality die. If the hope die is higher, your character stays on their feet and clears amount of hit points or stress equal to the value of the hope die. Divide the hope die between the hit points and stress, however you prefer. If the fear die is higher, your character crosses through the veil of death. If you critically succeed, your character stays up and clear all hit points and all stress. So, Owen, my good friend, which one would you choose? Which death move would you use? Just in general, not by characters, just in general.
I seem to be more inclined with the second option.
Avoid death?
Yeah.
I would say, for me, if I really wanted, like, if I know that the character did what they had to do, and I want to just be like, you know what, YOLO it, I would do risk it all, because who doesn't?
Yeah, you would.
I would do that, but if I know that my character still has unfinished business, especially this is the very narrative, like, system, this, I would do avoid death as well. But if I know that my character did what they did, I don't mind them crossing over the veil. But do know is that it is possible to resurrect a dead player. It is often long, difficult, and costly process. If the party decides to take the path upon a character's death, the GM details the step the party must take to complete the resurrection. And there's also a resurrection spell available from the Splendor Domain at level 10. But if the character does not want to fully make a new character yet, or does not want to let go, you can actually work with the GM to have a very long progress to bring them back, which could be a very fun side quest, at least in my opinion. And hey, there's some additional rules. This game does not use fraction. If you need to round to a whole number, round up unless otherwise specified. And then there's re-rolling dice. When a feature allows you to re-roll a die, you can always take the new results. You do not choose between the first and the new one unless the feature specifically says you can. There's incoming damage. There's also stimulus. I cannot say this. And stacking effects, ongoing spell effects, and then there's also the end of the scene as well. Another thing is what I like the end of the scene type thing, like end of combat. It's also reminds me a little bit of their other system that they have, which is Candela Obscura, where if the character do go down, they have to wait until the end of the scene to be brought back, or comes back to. Um, I think, I think we kind of covered a lot. And then there's also running the adventure, which is definitely a lot. But I definitely think for the GMs to definitely read that on their own, because there's certain things that you might want to change in your own game. Especially for me, there are some games that I would want to change. Especially it talks about how to run a session, how to run a one-shot and a campaign. So if you have the book or if you want to learn, I definitely check out watching Daggerheart on YouTube. I know that a lot of people have been talking about it. And there's also campaign frames in here as well. But I think it's time for you to make your character, Owen.
Joy.
Oh, you'll be fine. I promise. So, we are going to kind of give a idea of how you would make a character. I'm unfortunately we don't have like a party with us, so we can kind of get the full experience on how you make a character. But this is just how it would work with when one person is doing it in the group. We're just focusing on one. So, Owen, if you would like, do you want to use your turtle wizard or do you want to use a different character? Whatever you want to. We're going to put the D&D into Daggerheart.
You seem to be focusing a lot on that particular character, so we're gonna have to do it.
It's up to you. I just put that out there because it's the only character I remember you playing. So if you want to do a different character, you could.
Nah, we'll stick with it.
All right. So, please refresh our memory what your character is. Like refresh who he was, when you were playing the character, etc., etc. For those who are probably listening to this episode for the first time.
The character is named Wabu Softshell. He is a turtle wizard. He is very timid, shy, and pretty much scared of everything.
All right. So, with that, what what class do you want to be?
Well, starting off with his ancestry, he would be a Galapa. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yes, definitely. Well, we have to make sure we can have our character sheet, of course, to make sure we can write that down. So I was, but yes, it will be definitely that turtle class that I cannot. I mean, the turtle ancestry that I cannot say. But what community would they be from? Just to give you a reminder, I will send them to you. We have Highborn, we have Lowborn, Orderborn, Ridgeborn, Seaborn, Slyborn, Underborn, Wandererborn, and Wildborn. And while you're looking through them, I'm going to describe it for everybody else that are listening. So for the Highborn, being part of a Highborn community means you're accustomed to a life of elegance, opulence, and prestige within the upper eons of society. And the ability for this is you have privilege. You have advantage on roles to consort with nobles, talk about prices, or leverage your reputation to get what you want. Then you have Loreborn. Being part of a Loreborn community means you are from a society that favors strong academic or political prowess. And then you have the ability of well-read. You have advantage on roles that involve the history, culture, or politics of a prominent person or place. Then you have Orderborn. Orderborn means that you are from a collective that focuses on discipline and faith. You uphold a set of principles that reflects your experience there. Dedicated, record 3 sayings or values your upbringing instills in you. Once per rest, when you describe how you're embodying or inputting one of these principles through your current action, you can roll a d20 as your hope die, so you have a higher chance of rolling hope on that. Then you have Ridgeborn, which means you are called by the rocky peaks and the sharp cliffs of the mountainside home. And you have Steady. You have advantage on rolls to traverse dangerous cliffs and ledges, navigate harsh environments, and use your survival knowledge. Then you have Seaborn, which means you lived on or near a large body of water. And the ability for this is Know the Tide. You sense the ebb and EBB, just to know how that is spelled, and the flow of life. When you roll with fear, place a token on this card. You can hold a number of tokens equal to your level. Before you make an action roll, you can spend any number of these tokens to gain a +1 bonus to the roll for each token spent. At the end of each session, you can clear all unspent tokens. Then there's Slyborn. This means you come from a group that operates outside the law, including all manner of criminals, grifters, and con artists. And the ability is Scoundrel. You have advantage on rolls to talk with the criminals, detect lies, or find a safe place to hide. Underborn is being part of a community that is from the caves, subterranean society, and you have low light living as your ability. When you're in an area with low light or heavy shadow, you have advantage on rolls to hide, investigate, or perceive details within that area. Then we have Wanderborn. When you're being part of the Wanderborn community, means you have lived as a nomad, forging a permanent home and experiencing a wide variety of cultures. Nomadic Pack is the ability. You add a Nomadic Pack to your inventory. Once per session, you can spend a hope to reach into this pack and pull a mundane item, no, not a bomb, that is useful to your situation. You work with the DM to figure out what the item you take out. Last and finally, Wildborn. Being part of the Wildborn community means you live deep within the forest, and you have the ability called Lightfoot. Your movement is naturally silent. You have the advantage on rolls to move without being heard. Hold on. You have the ability of Lightfoot. Your movement is naturally silent. You have advantage on rolls to move without being heard. Damn. So, with those 9 communities, what would you like to choose?
Going back to my character's background or origins, he was raised by a wizard and was made an apprentice, and they lived in a library in their community, so Loreborn seems fitting.
All right, so we'll do a Loreborn Galapa. And just for those who are listening, with the Galapa, they're turtle people. That's all I can think of. And you have 2 abilities, 2 features. You have a shell, obviously. You gain a bonus to your damage threshold equal to your proficiency. And then you have retract. You mark a stress to retract into your shell. While in your shell, you have resistance to physical damage. You have disadvantage on action rolls. And you can't move, which is very fun. So with the shell, usually with damage threshold, you add your level. But you, my friend here, also add equal to your proficiency. So at level 1, you're adding a +2 to your damage threshold. So you're going to be a very hefty person, which kind of resembles your turtle now. I know you had a high AC because of the race you were.
Yeah, turtles have a feat or facial trait that they have is their natural AC, which it gives them a natural armor class of 17.
Which is amazing. In this, let's say you choose an armor that has a threshold of 6 and 13. It says 7 to 14. It's 8 to 15 now, which is pretty high. That means you get at just for a minor threshold, that's 8 damage. That's like 7 damage. You can be like, nah, just 1 hit point. And then as you increase, so let's say you hit to level 2, that means you can add a +4 to all of it. Well, you add another 2 to it. I think that's how that works. I might have to revisit that. Because it did say your level and your... Yeah, so you add another 2 to it. Yeah. Unless you're starting at like level 2, then you add a +4 to everything. I'm not going to go into that. Now, since you have your heritage, which is your heritage, I mean, I think is somewhat obvious unless you want to change your class for this, which I would be very happy for. You do whatever you want. This is your character. This is your story. This is your narrative. But what class would you like to be?
Oh, the main reason why I made Wabu a wizard is because the reason for him being my aspect of fear or timidness is that I went with the School of Illusion for the wizard class.
Mm-hmm.
Because illusions focusing on something else. But given that and Daggerheart doesn't really necessarily have that, I may have to change it. I'm just not entirely sure which would fit
Mm-hmm.
fear or timidness.
It, I would say, let me look at the let me look at the classes. Um,
Not
I will,
Bard.
I will say, obviously not bard. No, no, no. I would say, if you really want to, honestly, either sorcerer or wizard would work. But I will say, if you play the School of Knowledge, let me look at the details for the School of Knowledge. It should be here somewhere. Page 27 will probably explain everything. Yeah. So, I'll describe you the sorcerer stuff just so you have an idea. So this is Guardian, Ranger. This is also Ranger. This is Sarah. We're almost there. Sorcerer. So, for the sorcerer, you can choose this as the gift of these wielders are passed down through families, even the family are unaware of the practice. You don't have to really go off of that, but you can do something else. A sorcerer abilities can range from the elemental to illusionary and beyond, and many practitioners band together in collectives based on their talents. The act of becoming a formidable sorcerer is not the practice of acquired powering, but learning to cultivate and control the power one already possess. The magic of misguided or undisciplined sorcerer is dangerous force indeed. So the sorcerer class may be fun as they do a lot more magic, especially when they have the midnight domain in their lovely books. Is that midnight has to do with a lot of hiding, so there's some abilities you can take from that so you can hide instead of just using your shell.
It makes him fit in.
And then for the wizard, if I remember correctly, real quick, I know that one of the subclasses, which is the School of Knowledge, with that, you actually take an additional domain card of your level or lower from a domain you have access to. So instead of starting with 2 domain cards, you start with 3, which is very fun. And of course, there's the School of War, but that is not yours.
Nope.
With the School of Knowledge, you also have, when you utilize an experience, you can mark a stress instead of a hope. If you do, you can double your experience modifier for that roll. So if you want to do something better mechanically, you can also do that. But it seems you are leaning towards sorcerer.
Seems likely.
Okay.
Maybe wizard.
Okay. I will send you both of the character sheets so you can look at it. So for now, we'll focus on the sorcerer one, so we can take a look at another class. And then obviously we'll go to, at another time, we'll see which one you like better. So if we were doing this in person and we were talking, so your sorcerer class, you make sure you have a whole bunch of stuff. But we are going to skip all of that, and we're going to just talk about your subclasses and the domains you would choose. So the first thing is, do you want to choose elemental origin or the primal origin? I will send you those in a moment. Where is it? There it is. Here's the elemental, and here's this one. So, for the elemental origin, your spell tree is instinct, and your elementalist, you choose one of the following elements as character creation. You can shape this element into harmless effect. Additionally, you spend a hope and describe how you control over this element. helps an action roll you're about to make, then either gain a +2 bonus to the roll or a +3 bonus to the roll's damage. Then there's the Primal Origin, which is spellcast trait instant, and you can manipulate magic. Your Primal Origin allows you to modify the essence of magic itself. After you cast a spell or make an attack using a weapon that deals magic damage, you can mark a stress to do one of the following. Extend the spell or attack reach by 1 range. You can gain a +2 bonus to the action roll result, double a damage die of your choice, or you can hit an additional target within range, which is basically meta magic. Those 4 are basically meta magic right there.
I think I'll probably have to go with Primal Origin. Elemental doesn't really exactly fit.
Fun. So, with that, there's usually a lot of other things you probably have to do, but let's say you're going to be choosing your armor, and let's say one of the armor is 6 and a 13. You're going to be bringing both of those up by 2, so it'll be 8 and 15, which is very good, actually, starting at level 1. Now, my friend, you have 6 domain cards you can choose from, because every domain cards have 3 level 1 cards starting at level 1, which is very nice. So you have Arcana and
Midnight.
yes. So I'm going to send you all of those, and then I'm going to explain each of them for those who are listening. So here are your 6 cards you can choose from, and you can choose 2 out of them. So, first one from the Arcane domain, you have Rune Ward. You have a deeply personal trinket that can be infused with protective magic and held as a ward by you or your ally. Describe what it is and why it's important to you. The ward's holder can spend a hope to reduce incoming damage by 1d8. If the ward die result is 8, the ward power ends after it reduces damage this turn. It can be recharged for free on your next rest. The next one is Unleash Chaos. At the beginning of a session, place a number of tokens equal to your spell trait on this card. So if your instinct is a +2, you put 2 tokens on here. Make a spellcast or put a die on top of it, or a counter die. It could be anything. Make a spellcast roll. When you're making a spellcast roll, it's your duality die. And some of them actually has their own DC, so there may be a DC that says 15. You have to roll higher than 15 for your spellcast roll. Make a spellcast roll against a target within far range and spend any number of tokens to channel raw energy from within yourself to unleash against them. On a success, roll a number of d10s equal to the token you spent and deal that much magic damage to the target. Mark a stress to replenish this card with tokens up to your spell trait. At the end of each session, clear all unspent tokens. Then you have Wall Walk. Very simple, spider climb. That's how I can explain it. Spend a hope to allow a creature you can touch to climb on walls and ceilings as easily as walking on the ground. This lasts until the end of the scene, or you cast Wall Walk again. Now, from the Midnight, you have Pick and Pull. You have advantage on action rolls to pick non-magical locks, disarm non-magical traps, or steal items from a target, either through stealth or by force. Then you have the Rain of Blades. Spend a hope to make a spellcast roll and conquer throwing blades that strike out at enemies within very close range. Targets you succeed against takes a d8 +2 magic using your proficiency. If a target you hit is vulnerable, they take an extra d8 of damage. Last and finally, Uncanny Disguise. When you have a few minutes to prepare, you can mark a stress and don the facade of any humanoid you can picture clearly in your mind. While disguised, you have advantage on present rolls to avoid scrutiny, if I'm saying that right. Place a number of tokens equal to your spell trace on this card. When you take an action while disguised, spend a token from this card. After the action that spends the last token resolve, the disguise drop. Now reading this card, that's actually really cool. Because instead of having disguise self, you cast a spell and then it drops. That's a problem. Well, this, you actually have a chance to be somebody else before, they think it's actually you. So you have 6 options to choose from, and then while you were choosing, when you level up, you get to choose more. And there's a loadout and there's a vault. So your loadout can only hold 5 cards, and your vault can hold as many cards as you can, basically from any domain that you have, which is the only 2 domain unless you choose the multi-class. Not gonna go much into that because that's still a little new to me. If you ever want to change a card that is from your vault to your loadout, there is a recall cost. And on the card, for you listeners, there are the domain cards. If you search up any domain, you could probably see the same. On the top right hand corner, there will be a number with a little like lightning bolt, and that is the amount of stress you have to spend to bring that card to your loadout, to basically switch the cards. That is if you need to switch it quickly, but during a long rest, you can switch a card without any cost, which is also very fun. As well as when you level up, you can always change your cards as well. So, my lovely friend Owen, have you decided to choose? Do you have one of the domain cards in mind, or at least both of them? One of the 2, I guess. Oh, that's the other thing before you answer. You don't have to choose from the same domain since you only have 2. You could choose 2 from one, 2 from the other, or 1 from each.
Thinking, I'm thinking of that from the Arcana domain. I'm thinking the Rune Ward, and from Midnight, the Uncanny Disguise.
Ooh, that is a very good choice, especially for your character. I think he might want to put on disguise if he needs to walk into something. But yeah, and then obviously on your sorcerer sheet on the second page, it'll probably ask you some questions about your backstory and such, and what you have in your inventory, etc., etc. But that is kind of the basics of character creation. Obviously, more depth of character creation can be found on YouTube. This is just to give you an idea of what some part of character creation would look like. I'm trying to think of any final remarks I want to say about Daggerheart. I mean, I think I covered it. I covered a lot, especially from what I've read. But just in general, if you are someone who likes the narrative more of the D&D side, Daggerheart might be your friend. It's also a little bit more easier to learn because a lot of it is on a card, and you just have to read it. Like one of my friends has told me when I got just somewhat off topic, like I was not sure about Magic the Gathering at first, but my friend got me into it, and it was very easy to learn because a lot of the abilities are on the card. Same thing with the universes. A lot of the abilities are on the card. It's a lot more easier. It's more visual. While for D&D, you kind of have to remember everything and learn as you go. Same thing with Daggerheart. You still have to learn as you go. A lot of the game is learn as you go because you just don't learn by just reading the instructions. It's like any board game. But what about you, Owen? Do you have any final remarks?
Given how much you've explained to the audience and myself, me being somewhat new to this whole thing, kind of like how I was introduced to Dungeons and Dragons to mostly creating a character sheet, it's a lot. But the more you play the game, the more you understand it. So the more you play, the more you understand, the less you have to worry, pretty much.
And another thing with the character creation, especially in Daggerheart, a lot of it is given to you, and you just have to input into the right spots. At least in my eyes, that's how it looks like for me, because a lot of like starting invasion, like it's given to you, or if you don't really know what you want to start with, it gives you options if you're not sure, and you can put that down as well. Instead of for like D&D, you have to look through like 3 to 4 books to figure out what do you want. While this, it gives you suggested stuff if you're really not sure where to place things, which is very fun. I like that they did that for the character sheets. I mean, is it a couple more sheets? Yes, but it's very useful. And another thing is I do want to say is that they have additional sheets where it's a sidecar, and you can put it underneath your actual character sheet, and wherever the arrows lined up, it actually explains that category, which is amazing. And I'm definitely going to, like, if I ever do run like a one shot or a mini campaign, I'm definitely making sure I print that out for my players so that they can, read it, because once you read it, you'll understand. And of course, they have all the cheat sheets that you need. I will put that out there as well. Yeah, I cannot wait to see what Daggerheart holds for the future, and especially with the Age of Umbra miniseries that is out right now. I know I
In
have,
the next few weeks.
yeah, from the recording, I have gotten like halfway through, and I'm already enraptured in it. Especially, I can't really explore, not, I haven't really explored a lot of the like spooky side of things, especially like Candela's a lot spooky, like I have run some games about that, but I haven't been able to explore that theme a little bit, especially with Age of Umbra. If you guys are interested in like the spooky feel, and if a consequence happens, it's darker stuff happens, I recommend watching that. But definitely, I will put a, you know what, in the description, I will put two links, to two different things. The first link would be, get your sheet together, and also the session 0 of Age of Umbra, so you guys can see how it feels when you create a character, because they go through it all. Well, that sounds like the final call for the Eye. It looks like we should be heading out and continuing our own adventures.
We thank you for joining and listening to our tales. We hope to see you again the next time we come by the Eye of Plenty, when you hear our voices in the tavern.